Number 10, Old King Phoenix Thor. So some people say that this would probably be the most powerful version of Thor. And oh boy, it's probably true. Imagine Thor with his own powers, but also the power of the Phoenix Force. That's when you get Old King Phoenix Thor, who just also looks really, really cool. This Thor is a lot older and wiser, but ends up getting defeated by Wolverine, who was harnessing the power of the Phoenix Force. But then Wolverine ends up getting killed by Dr. Doom, and it is given to Thor. And I mean, the rest is history. Number 9, Rogue Thor. Okay, so this version of Thor comes from Marvel's What If series. Something a lot of fans will become a lot more familiar with because they're making a Disney Plus series about it, with MCU characters, which will actually be really cool. So, this one tells the story about what if Rogue, the X-Men, had the powers of Thor. In this story, Rogue ends up killing Thor by absorbing his powers and then kind of goes evil. I mean, she goes on a killing spree, killing a lot of people. It's not all bad though. She doesn't stay evil forever. I mean, the spirit of Thor eventually convinces her to use her powers for good, and she does. But come on, she went crazy, and it happened, but just not in the main continuity, of course, because that would just be really, really dark. Number 8, Frost Giant Thor. Okay, so Frost Giant Thor comes from Marvel's What If series, and during it presents the idea of what would have happened if Odin got killed by Laufey and raised Thor himself. Loki and Thor still are not really close in this version, but Loki's kind of the good guy. He wants to leave and go to Earth, but Thor doesn't want that and tries to stop him, and he accidentally ends up killing his mother, Frigga. Thor is devastated by what he's done and ends up letting Loki go, and Loki lives a nice life on Earth. I mean, it's pretty dark for Thor, but at least Loki got a happy ending this time. Number 7, HELLBOUND Thor. HELLBOUND Thor isn't from Marvel's main Earth. He comes from Earth 5113, or also known as the Dormammu-verse, which is named after, yes, Dormammu from Doctor Strange. In this universe, Dormammu is the ruler and has turned Thor, plus a lot of other famous Marvel heroes, into his minions, who will do anything for him. They all have new looks, and this version of Thor is very, very different. He's like really straight up scary. Yeah, he wasn't a big part of this story, so there's not a lot of information about him. But look-wise, he has his classic suit, but with a demon face, but he has all of his normal powers. Number 6, Thorian. Sometimes Marvel and DC cross over. It happens, and one time they did, some of their heroes worked together. This was the case with Thor and Orion to form Thorian. He was super powerful, and get this, he is the son of Thanos. That's Thanos and Darkseid merged together. Like, that's so cool, and is probably the scariest villain combo you could ever have. But this isn't technically canon, it's in its own universe, but it was pretty cool to see. It's always a treat whenever Marvel and DC decide to work together. Hopefully we see more of it in the future. Number 5, Revenger Thor. Yeah, it's called the Revengers because I'm getting revenge and you're getting revenge. Do you want revenge? Okay, so that quote was from Thor Ragnarok, but that version of the Revengers doesn't have any connections to Revenger Thor. But I just wanted to put that quote in there because, yeah, it was fun. Alrighty, so Revenger Thor comes from an alternate universe, Earth 10011, also known as the Cancerverse. In that universe, Thor is part of a team called the Revengers. And as you guessed, they are evil. They are basically the evil counterparts of the Avengers, which is kind of cool. They end up getting defeated by Thanos, which is also pretty crazy since they usually end up defeating him. But in this version, or this universe, Thanos is the hero, and he saves the day. 4, Beta Ray Bill. Beta Ray Bill, a character that is very popular with fans and long overdue for a live-action appearance. Beta Ray Bill is a character that is very popular with fans and long overdue for a live-action appearance. If you are not familiar, Beta Ray Bill is an alien who was able to pick up Thor's hammer. No one was expecting it to happen, but it happened. He didn't keep it, obviously, but he did end up getting his own cool hammer. The whole thing started when Nick Fury sent Thor up to investigate a spaceship, and he ran into Beta Ray Bill, and the two of them were like, hey, fight. But during that fight, he picked up Thor's hammer. Now, he was teased in Thor Ragnarok, so maybe that means that the MCU is slowly leading up to an appearance? I mean, only time will tell, guys. Number 3, Zombie Thor. Need I say more? No. Number 2. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, Zombie Thor comes from the Marvel Zombie series, which was written by Walking Dead creator Robert Kirkman. It takes place on Earth 2149, and on that Earth, a zombie virus ends up infecting almost all the heroes and villains of the Marvel universe. Thor is one of those heroes. So he looked very cool and terrifying at the same time. But one of the most interesting things about this version is that since he was technically dead, he was no longer worthy of Mjolnir. So Zombie Thor didn't have it. He ended up getting his own hammer later on. but he didn't have Mjolnir, and that was something that I thought was very, very interesting. Number 2, Venom Thor. Yep, this one is real, like no joke. Venom Thor. Man, just the name is terrifying because you know Venom Thor is a deadly combo. But like Rogue Thor and all the other ones, this one happens during one of Marvel's What If stories. What if the alien costume had possessed Spider-Man? In this story, Venom takes over Spider-Man, but then continues to take him over, and then Hulk. But of course, he doesn't stop there. He's like, maybe I should take over some more heroes. And he decides to take over Thor. Venom takes over Thor and gets all of his powers. I mean, imagine if this happened in the main continuity. Venom would be virtually unstoppable because he retains all of the powers he takes. So he would have the powers of Spider-Man, Hulk, and Thor. Who would be able to stop him? No one. He would just rule the earth forever. Number 1, Unworthy Thor. This is one of the coolest versions of Thor, like ever. The reason he is so different is because this is Thor when he is unworthy of Mjolnir. He has short hair, a massive battle axe, ripped clothes, and one arm. His other arm was chopped off by Malekith and replaced with black uru. This look was part of the inspiration for Thor's look in the film Thor Ragnarok, which was freaking amazing. This story really breaks Thor down and shows who he is without the hammer. Honestly, it really works, and stories like this help characters grow. And Thor, or known as son, learns a lot of valuable lessons during this arc, and becomes a better hero for it. I mean, he even fought Thanos during this comic, and it was pretty damn epic. Thor is just so cool. I can't wait to see where Marvel takes him next.
Number 10, Hellbound Thor. So, this Thor comes from Earth 5113. In this universe, also known as the Dormammu-verse. Yes, Dormammu, as in the Doctor Strange villain. In this universe, Dormammu is the ruler and has turned a lot of heroes that we know and love into his minions. That includes Thor. Seriously, Thor looks very, very scary here. He wasn't in a lot of the story, but his brief appearance was memorable enough for people to remember how creepy he was. He had his classic suit, but with a demon face and all of his normal powers. Just let that sink in. It's a demon face Thor. Creepy. Number 9, Pre-Banished Thor. So, okay, let me explain. So Pre-Banished Thor isn't scary for his look. It's more of his actions. He was a cocky guy that didn't care about anyone but himself. He started wars, killed a lot of people, let a lot of people die. Ultimately, he did pay the price for all of it, but the cool thing about that is that it forced Thor to grow as a character. He has evolved so much over the years that is really satisfying to read or, even watch in the movies. In the movies, just look at him in Thor 1 versus him in Thor Ragnarok. His journey through those movies has been amazing, and it feels like a completely different character. Even his arc in Avengers Endgame was interesting, showing that even though he's a god, he's not perfect. And even though he was sad and depressed, he was always still worthy, and I absolutely love that. Number 8, Ultimate Thor. I really just think a lot of the Ultimate Universe characters were just crazier than their original counterparts. And Thor, was really different from his original one. All the characters in the universe were just kind of like slightly exaggerated or just slightly crazier versions of themselves. I mean, Hulk ate people in the Ultimate Universe. Luckily, Thor didn't eat people, but he just still wasn't that same guy we know from the main 616 continuity. Number 7, Unworthy Thor. So this version of Thor is more of like a scary, cool kind of scary. Like, you don't want to mess with this guy. He just has that vibe. He had short hair, a massive battle axe, ripped clothes, and one arm. His one arm was chopped off by Malekith, and they replaced it with black uru. It made him look even just more badass. He even fought Thanos like that in one issue. And the Unworthy Thor has become a fan favorite series because it really broke Thor down and showed the man behind the hammer. Similar to what they did with him in the film Thor Ragnarok. They destroyed his hammer and showed us what Thor was like without it. He needed to realize that it wasn't the hammer giving him his power, but actually himself. Both were really cool stories. If you haven't read The Unworthy Thor, check it out, or if you haven't seen Thor Ragnarok, watch it, because it's awesome. Number 6, Herald of Galactus Thor. On Earth 717, Thor became a Herald of Galactus, but he made a deal with him, which is why it happened. Galactus ended up going to Asgard, and let me tell you, it wasn't a friendly visit, and Thor quickly realizes that, and they kind of wouldn't be able to stop him. So, Thor decides to make a deal with him in order to save Asgard and the people in it. He makes a deal so that now he works for Galactus. it was an interesting story, but even though Galactus is super powerful, I feel like Thor would, of course, want to save everyone, but somehow he would just find a way to stop him without having to serve Galactus for eternity. I feel like that's just the Thor that I think about. Number 5, Beta Ray Bill. Beta Ray Bill has become a massive fan favorite. He was an alien that was able to pick up Thor's hammer. Of course, he didn't keep it forever and ended up getting his own, but it was a big deal when it happened and no one expected it. And it happened when Nick Fury wanted Thor to check out some kind of alien ship, so Thor went up, saw Beta Ray Bill, the two of them were like, hey, fight. But during the fight, he picked up Thor's hammer. And since then, he's amassed a really big fan base. People really like him. And they still hope that one day we will see him brought to the big screen. He was teased in Thor Ragnarok, so who knows, maybe we'll see him in the MCU. One can only hope, my friends. One can only hope. Number 4, Rogue Thor. This version of Thor comes from Marvel's What If series. It was what if Rogue possessed the power of Thor. In this comic, Rogue absorbs Thor's powers, but by doing so, she ends up killing him, and then proceeds to go on a killing spree, killing tons of heroes and basically anyone that tried to oppose her. But then the spirit of Thor ends up convincing her to use her powers for good. She does. So I guess in a way it ends up working out. I mean, it does kind of suck for Thor. I mean, he did die, and so did a lot of other people. Good thing it was a What If series, and it didn't actually happen in main continuity, because that would just be depressing. Number 3, Revenger Thor. This Thor comes from an alternate universe, Earth 10011, also known as the Cancerverse, which we talked about earlier with Nova. Thor is part of a team called the Revengers, not to be confused with the team Thor formed in Thor Ragnarok. This one is a corrupt version that resides in the Cancerverse. They are essentially an evil version of themselves and are the exact opposite of the Avengers. And something very interesting happens in this universe. They are eventually defeated, but you will never guess who's the one to do it. Thanos. Yep. Thanos is the one that saves the world in this version by defeating the Revengers. I mean, it's pretty funny and the complete opposite of what happens in main continuity, but I mean, it was interesting to see Thanos on the other side for once. Number 2, Zombie Thor. Zombie Thor comes from the Marvel Zombie series that was written by Robert Kirkman, who of course is famous for creating The Walking Dead. On Earth 2149, a zombie virus ends up infecting almost all of the heroes and villains in the Marvel Universe. Of course, one of those is none other than Thor. All of the heroes were scary as zombies, but Thor was an undead god, and a zombie god is a terrifying sight. Also, since he was dead, he was no longer worthy of his trusty hammer Mjolnir. He ended up creating another one, but I thought it was a really cool little detail and made for an even more interesting story. Number 1, Venom Thor. This one is terrifying. Like, just when you thought Venom couldn't be any scarier, he merges with Thor to create Venom Thor. Of course, this doesn't happen during the main continuity, but during one of Marvel's What If stories. What if the alien costume had possessed Spider-Man? During that story, Venom takes over Spider-Man, and then Hulk, which is equally terrifying thought, but then after that, it decides to take over Thor as well, and it's terrifying. Like seeing Venom with the hammer and have long hair, it's not a pretty sight. And Venom is super powerful because he retains all the abilities of the people that he has taken over. So he is basically unstoppable at that point.
Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Old King Thor. Coming from Earth 14412, Old King Thor refers to himself as an older version of our Earth 616 Thor. So much so that if our Earth's Thor dies, he will also not exist anymore at all. Love it. We love future stress. Making his debut in Thor God of Thunder issue 1 in 2012, and this version is a creator version of the god. It's fun. In the future, Thor becomes a bit hasty. It shows a lot of his true potential, especially when he creates humans for this new Earth named Steve and Jane. Classic human names. After defeating Gore, he and his granddaughters began to rebuild this new world, starting with plant life. I feel like we're gearing up to see King Thor in the MCU. I mean, the eye patch, his weight gain, this emotional trauma, he really seems like he's going through it lately. King Thor also possesses the power of the Odin Force, which is also known as the power of the Allfather. And when wielded by Thor, of course, is called the Thor Force, or the Force. It doesn't work. We give it a shot, we try our best. This power allows Thor to become invincible and seems to allow them to rival the powers of the strongest beings in the universe. Sounds like a pretty sweet deal. Here's the kicker though, if it's overused, it forces the user to enter a deep sleep to recover, and of course, making them vulnerable while doing so. I feel like this can be the plot for Thor Love and Thunder. I mean, maybe Thor has to use this power right off the hop of the film, then he enters a deep sleep, and then bam, that's where Jane Foster comes in to protect the Sleeping Beauty himself. There you go. And before we make our way to number 9, guys, if you could go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, that would be just splendid, because it goes a long way for us here at the studio. You guys rock. Thank you. Now back to some more God stuff. Number 9, Zombie Thor. We all know Chris Hemsworth's diet is insane in order to maintain the God of Thunder's physique. He has like 15 abs. I'm sure it's not easy, but when it comes to appetite, Marvel's Zombies doesn't hold back. Making his nasty debut in Marvel Zombies Army of Darkness in issue 1, it was a brief appearance, as you expect with the city plagued by a zombie contagion. And as far as the Hammer's commitment goes, once Ultimate Reed Richards enters the chat, Thor couldn't wield Mjolnir anymore, so instead he makes a makeshift hammer. This one made of a pipe and a cinder block. Nice. It didn't last long though because, you know, Silver Surfer's face kind of got in the way. Ouch. Number 8, Thor. Thor, but with an extra R, a little extra spice in this one, that's for sure. So Thor, this is the evil Thor of Earth 83292. So he's a bit of a dick this time around. Fair. He kills people if he believes that they don't worship him enough. I mean, a little much. Thor. We'll do Thor's Day from now on. Is that fine? What if we do that? Is that cool? This version is pretty dark, but I'm a fan. I mean, he really loves pies. Check it out. His journey begins in Avengers Volume 5, Issue 25. Like I said, this version's evil. He's a villain, but I have to throw him on this list because he's too badass to ignore. Sorry, not sorry. Venom Thor. Okay, this next one is absolutely insane, as you would imagine. We would stand no chance against this one. Earth 1089 is home to Venom Thor, and he made his debut back in What If Volume 2, Issue 4. Issue Thor? Issue 4. I see you, Marvel. So after killing its previous host, of course Spider-Man, the Venom symbiote made its way to Thor. Very scary. It didn't last long. Thank you, God, it didn't last long. Well, rather thanks to Black Bolt for intervening. That would have been messy. The symbiote with the hammer and cape, I mean, I gotta tell you, something about it I like. I don't know. He even has the flow too, the Venom flow. It looks wet, it looks nice, it looks ready to go. Venom Thor is real mighty with a hint of fright. He takes care of Johnny Storm, bam, super quick, and then when Captain Marvel attempts to level him, the hammer just absorbs her power and shoots her back away. If only Black Bolt didn't get in the way, it probably would have been a pretty spectacular light show. Gory, but spectacular nonetheless. Throg. The Frog of Thunder. Why, of course, everyone knows him. Simon Walterson made his comic book debut in Lockjaw and the Pet Avengers issue 1, and this version is quite noteworthy. He started off the usual way a Frog of Thunder starts, you know, a college football star at Mississippi State University. Maybe it doesn't start all the same, I don't know. After being drafted, of course, a knee injury left him unable to play anymore. Classic. And as if things couldn't get worse, he lost his wife, and then after battling depression, decided to take his pain to a witch, who connected him to the afterlife. He was able to communicate with his wife, how sweet. And then he wasn't able to pay the witch afterwards, which is not that sweet. Dine and dash on a witch? Dude, you're crazy. So the witch decides to get a little payback and turns Simon into a frog. He was soon given the name Puddle Gulp after meeting the other frogs on New York. Also, no, I'm not joking, this is all real. He comes across a small piece of Mjolnir, and then there you have it. The Frog of Thunder has risen. If you haven't seen any of Throg, it's quite riveting. I mean, riveting. Is that a witch near? Huh? Ultimate Thor. Starting with Ultimates issue 4, we see the Earth 1610 version begin his life on Earth in a not so pleasant way. So while exiled on Earth, he really did believe he was human. More specifically, a psychiatric nurse named Thorleif Gullman. Honestly, I feel like that name is more badass than Thor Odinson. It's kinda close. So around his 30th birthday, Thorleif began having these delusions of this Asgard place, and then he soon met his half-brother Gunnar. He introduced him to a project called the Dome. So basically in Brussels, they were trying to recreate this super soldier serum yet again, but this time they went with a magic belt of sorts. So instead of trying the whole biomechanical route, you know? The test subject, of course, being Thorleif Gullman. Gullman and Sachs, can't include that. So he was given this badass Thor outfit, and the look was finally complete. He started these rants up again, how he was the Norse god of thunder. And after a neat MRI scan from Professor James Braddock, it was discovered that Thor wasn't making any of this up. These were memories, their memories are real. I like this version of Thor. He doesn't agree to join the Ultimates after Fury asks until the foreign aid budget was doubled. My man negotiating, we'd love to see it. Also, Thor's magic belt was mentioned in Spider-Man Homecoming. Could this be a hint that we're gonna get some sort of crazy Thor outfit in the future? Yeah, probably. They like to do that. Thor. If you're a dog person, this next one is gonna make your day, as it made mine. Thor making his first appearance, or occurrence, nah, it's cats, damn it. and Peter Porker, the Spectacular Spider-Ham issue 5. Thur is by far the cutest version of Thor. Sorry Hemsworth, you're a close second. Making his home on Arfgard, of course, he's the dog of thunder instead of god of thunder. Yeah, we reversed the word. See what I did? Yeah, you got it. What's a super dog without a super pack? When it came time to taking down Dr. Octopus of Earth 50810, Thur joined the other Scavengers. Yeah, see, now you know what we're doing here. You know what it's all about. He was joined by the oh-so-loving Captain Americat, Quacksilver, and Ant. Cool. Look, we got Spider-Ham John Mulaney edition, so to say we'll see Thor on the big screen, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it'll happen. We're not gonna see it, that's for sure. I'll make it myself if I have to. Let's go. It's only a matter of time. I believe. Jane Foster. I'm super excited that Taika Waititi is returning for Thor Love and Thunder. Thor Ragnarok was one of the most fun Marvel movies that they put out there. Easy, hands down. So when they announced that Natalie Portman was returning to wield the hammer in the upcoming sequel, I was jazzed. I'm so excited to see what they do with this. I mean, once Thor becomes unworthy, Jane takes over. I mean, she's pretty close to him. She's probably got the swing down at this point, right? The tough part about her is that the more she uses the hammer and possess the powers of Thor, the worse her cancer gets. I really hope this part doesn't make it into the flick, because I feel like I would just come out depressed. So during the comic Original Sin, Nick Fury obtains the Watcher's Eye, which is a real neat tool. And he whispers in Thor's ear that Gore was right. Gore was right, by the way. So Gore, this guy, he thinks that gods cause more trouble than anything, and they're like the worst ever. It makes Thor drop his hammer, seeing as he believes that gods are not worthy. And then he's like, by the way, he's right, y'all ain't worthy. Oops. So while Thor uses Yarngord instead, which is awesome name for anything, Mjolnir needs a new helping hand, literally, and who other is worthy than Jane Foster. Now while the cancer setback is absolutely awful, Jane doesn't let it interfere with her duty, and at one point her and Freya go against Odin, Cole Borson, Frost Giants, Loki, Dark Elves. Like, she doesn't just pick up the hammer, use it a little bit, and then gets on her way. No, she's committed. Committed to the bit. Storm Thor. From Earth 904, we find in the What If the X-Men Had Stayed in Asgard series, this beautiful combination of Storm and Thor. Storm. Yeah, I'll always try. And let me tell you, there's a lot of lightning in this one. So after a few X-Men decide to stay on Asgard, Thor at this point is still trapped as a frog back on Earth. Classic Loki, making people frogs. Loki actually created another mythical hammer and gave it to Storm. Now she did a pretty bang up job, considering that when Thor returned, he let her become the queen of Asgard. I mean, that makes a whole lot of sense. Her powers alone, before getting a magical hammer, she should be running the show regardless. Let's go. And finally, number 1, Beta Ray Bill. I really think we'll get to see this one on the big screen very, very soon. It's been teased numerous times now, but who is Beta Ray Bill exactly? Why is he always the talk of the town? The main 616 universe is home to the Corbinites, and amongst them is the powerful Beta Ray Bill. Making his first appearance back in 1983 in Thor issue 337, this version of Thor is recognized widely by his hammer, and that it's actually Stormbreaker, which we finally got to see in Infinity War for the first time. It was epic, the whole arm thing with Groot. So good. I stood up. I literally stood up. Bill was the first character to lift Mjolnir besides Thor or Odin. He's a big deal. Odin actually made Thor and Beta Ray Bill fight, and after Beta Ray Bill won, he refused to kill Thor. Questioning Odin and the rules of the hammer, he asked if he can use the hammer later on in life, you know, after he's gained wisdom and all that nice stuff. So Odin gives him his own hammer, Stormbreaker. Not a bad gift. This guy is awesome. He's a total badass. Christian Bale is rumored to play him in the MCU, so he kind of has to be a little bit of a badass, you know? If there's a Beta Ray, is there an Alpha Ray? Yes. He actually tried to replace him at one point as the race's guardian. He is in the main continuity of Thor, so to not see him in any movies at this point is just annoying.
Number 10, Thor of the Thunders. Thor of the Thunders is also known as the man named Donnel, an old man who hails from the reality of Earth 311, the world often referred to as 1602, which was created by Neil Gaiman and Andy Kubert. Thor of the Thunders was the godlike form that Donnel took upon slamming his artifact, a wooden stick, to the ground. The Doom of this reality attempted to steal this magical artifact but was unable to do so, as he dismissed the stick, which Donnel then used to transform into his Thor form. Thor of this reality is believed to be the god of storms, thunder, lightning, and agriculture. His very existence is considered very controversial considering the time period and the power and beliefs belonging to the Catholic Church. Number 9. Thunderstrike. Eric Masterson might not be around in the comics anymore, but when he was around, he was pretty powerful. He became merged with Thor Odinson for a time, and at one point replaced him as Thor as well. Eric was considered worthy enough to wield Mjolnir, but is also known for his own specific weapon, which also inspires his superhero name of Thunderstrike, based on the Thunderstrike mace. Eric died before he could even fully comprehend all the power that the mace offered. One of the most powerful abilities it granted, though, in my opinion, was that of teleportation, allowing Eric to open up portals to anywhere he chose, even allowing him to travel to other dimensions, or possibly alternate realities. Trans-dimensional travel capabilities are always super OP to me, especially when they come from a time period where they weren't as clearly defined, meaning that they could basically be as limitless as the story required. Them's the best time for crazy powers. The times when we didn't have to define anything. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more like it, be sure to show us by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8, ASGARDIAN. Billy Kaplan as Wiccan is definitely ramping up to be one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel multiverse, but before he was known as such, he went by a different name and style. When he was just starting out as a hero, Billy was a member of the Young Avengers, and inspired by Thor, took up the mantle of Asgardian, styling himself as such. The name didn't end up sticking, and only lasted for a few issues before he decided to change it to Wiccan in issue 6 of Young Avengers, which more suited his magic-based power set. However, it is important to note that Asgardians are known for being tied to magics as well, so while Billy was just starting out and the name didn't last long, in a way his magics do kind of tie him to the Asgardians, who are also sometimes known for being mystical. They are mystical, cosmic, and mythological, but it depends on the story as to which aspect is more highlighted. Billy, as Asgardian in this Thor Styles, is really only being ranked so low for his lesser ties to Thor, but power level wise at this point, he's pretty off the charts. Number 7, Groot Thor. Groot Thor is one of my favorite alternates. He appeared as one of the members of the Thor Corps on Battleworld. Other than the reality of Battleworld, we don't really know exactly where he comes from. He could even perhaps be a combination of two alternate characters for all we know. Anything is possible on the patchwork world of God Emperor Doom's Battleworld. Groot Thor, however, possesses the combined powers of both Thor and Groot, presumably from Earth 616, which would make him pretty crazy powerful, as both of those heroes are capable of great feats. So combine their abilities and you get one strong and capable character. Groot Thor ended up joining up with Jane Foster, who is also Thor, in the rebellion against God Emperor Doom, whom the Thor Corps originally worked for. Instead of only saying "I am Groot," he instead only speaks the phrase "I am Thor," which makes me laugh. It's great. I love Groot. He's one of my favorites. Number 6, RUNE Thor. RUNE Thor is one of the alternate Thors who appeared on Battleworld as a member of the Thor Corps. His fellow Thor ended up turning against him after they realized that RUNE Thor had turned pretty evil and was killing all the alternate Jane Fosters and Donald Blakes that he could find. RUNE Thor proved powerful enough to beat and eventually kill, as a result of his injuries, an alternate version of Beta Ray Bill, also part of the Thor Corps, who was known as Stormbreaker Ray. RUNE Thor, however, would also be taken down in the end by another member of the Thor Corps who was investigating the case involving the missing persons. The Janes, the Donalds, the missing persons. Number 5, Ultimate Thor. Thunderer Thorleaf, as he was known during his Battleworld days, was the one responsible for defeating RUNE Thor and killing him in the end. This version of Thor initially forgot who he was, and for a while in the Ultimate line, he was just a nurse by the name of Thorleif Goldman, who believed he was human. In the end, however, Thor would begin to remember Asgard, experiencing what others believed were delusions. Even readers thought he might actually be going insane, and we weren't really sure if he was really Thor or if it was all in his head, but later on it was revealed that he was in fact the real deal, the Norse god of thunder, and the real Thor in the Ultimate Universe of Earth 1610. Thor was established as one of the most powerful characters in the entire Ultimate Universe, and even when he doesn't have his innate powers, which would later be restored to him by Odin, he has his EDI biomechanical suit to back him up, which grants him abilities and attributes similar to his godlike ones. Number 4, Goddess of Thunder. Jane Foster has been known by many different heroic mantles. One, she is a doctor, which kind of makes her like an everyday hero. That's like an everyday hero mantle. And two, she is currently a Valkyrie and was one of the last Valkyries besides, well, until the return of the Valkyries, which kind of semi-randomly happened during the King in Black event. But in between, Jane Foster was known as Thor, taking up the mantle after Thor Odinson was deemed unworthy during the original Sin event. In many ways, Jane was considered to rival Thor in power, and at times even bested him. She also took up the mantle despite having cancer in her human form, and despite the fact that transforming into Thor basically canceled out the effects of her chemo, meaning that her cancer was only getting worse and worse from her transformations. So even though it was killing her, she was like, I'm still gonna be Thor. And man, you gotta respect Jane for that. That's pretty crazy. Number 3, MCU Thor. The Thor of the Marvel Cinematic Universe became so powerful that he didn't even need to have a hammer to use his power. This is a Thor who realized the power was inside him all along in Ragnarok, and despite becoming bro Thor in Avengers Endgame due to, well, his depression surrounding losing Asgard and then being unable to defeat Thanos, still was immensely powerful throughout that film. In fact, the Russo brothers confirmed in a post on Reddit that Bro Thor was no weaker than he was previous to this state, and he remained super powerful, but he was just going through some stuff at that time. In Avengers Infinity War, Thor was able to restart the Forge at Nidavellir with the help of Rocket, doing the unthinkable and holding the iris that focuses the neutron star within the Forge open himself, which meant he himself was hit with the star's powerful energy. Thor held the iris open long enough to ensure the top of Stormbreaker at least was forged, which when you think about it and you talk about it, it's kind of weird. But when it happened in the movie, you were like, oh, that's nice. Number 2, Beta Ray Bill. Beta Ray Bill deserves a lot of respect for just how powerful he is. So powerful, in fact, that even Odin was forced to recognize him after he bested Thor in combat. This happened back when Thor, being separated from his hammer, turned him back into Donald Blake. Remember those days? While he was separated from Mjolnir, Bill managed to get his hands on Blake's cane and summon Mjolnir's power for himself, being deemed worthy to wield it. This prompted Thor and Beta Ray Bill to battle over who should possess Mjolnir, and Beta Ray Bill was actually the victor of that fight. However, despite winning, and despite the fact that the fight was to the death, he decided to actually spare Thor's life. Odin decided to acknowledge his power, seeing how great of a warrior he was, and made him his own Asgardian weapon to wield moving forward, known as Stormbringer. Also, Scuttlebutt. I just like saying the name of that ship. Scuttlebutt. It's a good name. Number 1, King Thor. One of the most powerful alternate versions of Thor, hands down, has to be the alternate future version from Earth 14412, King Thor. This isn't just because of his power as ruler of Asgard and Allfather, a power which Thor would actually rename as the Thor Force once inherited, but this version of Thor has also bonded with and wielded the all-black Necrosword, and was also known for a time by another, more powerful name and mantle, King Phoenix. This happened after Wolverine relinquished the Phoenix Force and thereby his life to supercharge Mjolnir in helping King Thor to defeat Doom, because that's basically what he needed. He needed the Phoenix Force to do that. Never fear though, after Doom was defeated, the Phoenix Force managed to later resurrect Logan because that's how the Phoenix Force do. So even though Logan was like, I give up my life and my power for you, Thor, he still gotta come back after.